Now, tonight's main discussion is going to be a fun one. For those who like a little bit of R&B music and also Star Wars, well, we've got a little something for you tonight. Our guest tonight was once in chart-topping R&B group MN8, but he's now in Star Wars. He goes by the name of Dee Tails. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, man. I'm very good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chit-chat to us, Dee. We know you are a bit of a legend, like Mayboy said, in both of these industries. Just briefly, do you want to tell our listeners about MN8 and your career in music, and then we can dive straight into the Star Wars talk, because Dee has a rich Star Wars history to talk to us about. So, Dee, take it away, buddy.
Oh, wow. MN8, Dee Tails, KG, Cool T, G-Man. We kind of all just met up around the same kind of scene. And it just so happened that one singer, G-Man, saw me dancing in a club and came up to me and had a chat and just asked if I could rap and things like that. And I said, well, I don't rap. I can string hooks together, I'm functioning that way. I'm not really a freestyler as such, but I can add some flavor. and at that time it was kind of like, well, how do we all balance work and things like that? And it was just one of those instant things where we just said yes, and jumped in. Oh man, you're taking me back, man. So we were very hands-on with our own image. So I ended up styling the band, ended up choreographing the band, which also meant stage performance. So it was kind of like, get to a point where you know the routine and we just pick and choose how much we want to do at any given time. It had to be that kind of natural, because that's the guys who I was working with. Because I think our first live performance was on The Word. And then when we launched, I did all these road shows and did Smash It's road shows and things like that. And I remember doing Zig and Zag on The Big Breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah, Zig and Zag.
I remember them.
Listen, they're as cool as you saw them on TV.
Zig and Zag were quality when I was growing up. I remember seeing them as a kid when I was younger, before school and that, on The Big Breakfast and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. At one point they said, have you got any news for us? Anything exclusive? And we didn't. And then our manager just whispered to us, tell them you're touring with Janet Jackson. And we like to take the mick quite a bit. And we take the mick out of ourselves, everything. We're just complete jokers when we're together. And so we just thought it was a line we were giving them, right? And then afterwards they said, no. Janet wanted 4 bands to support her for a European tour. And then she saw you and said, no, I just want MN8. And we were, and our jaws hit the floor. You can't imagine. We toured with the likes of E17, Backstreet Boys, of course, Janet. We toured, we hung out with TLC while doing the European tour. We met Onyx. We were hanging out with Onyx. But it's when I talk about it now, it feels like I'm talking about a dream that I had. And sometimes it really takes me off guard when people remember the band. That whole period, we introduced the UK to Britain's version of New Jack Swing and R&B entertainment. And currently, we will forever be known as Britain's biggest selling all-male black boy band of the 90s.
You can tell, mate, by the way you're talking about it, is you can tell you're literally reliving those moments in your head, and you can hear how much it means to you. And firstly, of course, I've got a little something for you. Is a massive bop, and it always will be.
Thank you.
And MN8 has got a massive collection of accolades, like you just mentioned, like the sales, the first band to do this, first band to do that. That's the legacy. And like you say, if people don't remember that, then the fact that they are remembering it is quality for you guys as well. So.
Yeah, it's really, really special. During that whole period, I had studied at college in Stanmore, performing arts, because I really wanted to be an actor, and I didn't really know how that was going to take off, how I was going to do that. And at least with MN8, it kind of put my name on the map to actually be seen by certain agents who would then kind of, have me go through the process of gradually getting used to doing these castings that you would need to go to. And I found myself an agent at Ethnics Artists Agency, Pauline Oni, who's been there with me, man, through so many years. This is, we started doing some of the Shakespeare plays, like the Scottish play, did Romeo and Juliet. I played Paris in that, and a few characters, including one of the apparitions and so on in the Scottish one. So, things like that, I was getting some really good grounding, and I'd never really thought about Shakespeare until I'd seen Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, which blew me away.
Yeah.
It is such a beautifully made movie. It's absolutely incredible. And I understood it,
Yeah, that's it. I still struggle with a lot of that old Shakespearean stuff, but I'm sure with your tones, mate, we'd all get it. Well, you've gone from M&A, you've gone to Shakespeare and theatre, treading the boards.
Yes.
In terms of Star Wars, then, The Force Awakens, 2015, one of the most anticipated films ever. Well, firstly, what did you do on the set of The Force Awakens? What was your role, and how did you get it in the first place?
Okay, let me answer that with the second one first. It was like, from the time I started doing theatre, I ended up being thrown into Panto. All right, so in Panto, I started off playing the genie of the lamp for Hiss and Boo for Ian Liston, who was Wes Jensen in Empire Strikes Back, but I didn't know. I didn't know, until very much later on. And then we created this role of Tommy the Cat, who was this black and white cat. He had this red glittering vest on with gold buttons and these spats on and fur on his black leggings and this furry mane, black and white mane that he had. not on my afro, but on this afro wig, right? They had these two little white ears, and then I would paint my face. I absolutely loved the creation of that character. And while doing those pantos, I ran into Brian Herring, who operates one of the operators on BB-8. You have Matt Denton and Josh Lee, who invented the thing. And I listen, I don't even know how they did it. Even when they tell me, it don't make no sense.
I don't know how a man made that thing work.
Yeah, and then you had Dave Chapman. So you had Brian Herring, one of the operators on it, Matt Denton and Josh Lee, who invented the thing, and Dave Chapman, who also operated one of the wolves on What's Up Doc, who I'd met previously and never knew. And the guy who played the other wolf, he operated the tail and some other parts of Jabba the Hutt.
Wow.
So there were crumbs being led, early on. And Brian Herring had seen me performing as Tommy the Cat. And at the time, I didn't know that was Creature performing. I was just entertaining the kids and stuff like that. I just loved that. And got that phone call, isn't it? Says, Dee, Neil wants to come and see. Neil wants you to come in and see him. Okay, right. Now, this is after I know I've got an inkling what Brian's working on, because he couldn't say. And obviously I knew that Star Wars was about to take off and go into production. But I didn't audition for it. I thought, no, there's no chance. And the thousands and hundreds I'd be up against, and I wouldn't even be able to show off any talents, because you just walk in and, all these things were running around in my head, and it was just like, man, I wasn't seen for 24, and they're shooting Age of Ultron, and there's no way they need me for that, right? So, so I'm like, yeah, Star Wars, nah, let me just see how it Yes. So then I rock up to Pinewood, and I meet Neil and everybody, and they say, okay, well, we're going to take you. I have to sign all these non-disclosures, which, if you're a Star Wars fan, you kind of know that's coming, right? So it's like, yep, you can have that. What an honor it is, And they took me through to the creature shop, and the first thing I saw was R2 just sitting there.
Oh, yeah,
and R2's like my favorite, right? So I'm frozen to the spot. And I can't move, and I'm staring at R2, and Justin Pithlecki and Luke Fisher were working on some stuff in the corner, and Justin said with a big smile on his face, "Yeah, that happened to me too." And that was my first introduction to the creature shop. And I asked for permission. I remember asking for permission if I could walk past up too, And I was allowed to. And I kept my blinkers on. I didn't want to look at any of the designs on the wall or anything like that. I was just honoring, I don't want to know nothing in case I don't get anything, And they just put me straight into fittings. And I met Nathan Plant there. I met Paul Warren there. I met Tom Bell there. And we were being seen to play one of the husk wolf type characters, like, Varmic. Paul plays Varmic. So he was going to have a gang. And me and Tom and Nathan were going to be a part of that gang. And we were getting fitted for that. I was thinking, oh, wow. So I was practicing the walk and everything like that. When I got home, I was just thinking, oh, maybe walks like this and things. And then I had another phone call from Brian saying, yeah, Dee, sorry. Yeah, we're kind of going to go another way. Right. So I didn't know Paul and Nathan were still playing those characters, but they said, the concept of that has kind of changed. But, Neil says he wants to definitely try and find you something, so we'll let you know. And when you hear that, it's just like, nah, they're not going to let me know. That was my shot, and it's just like, you know what? I am celebrating if my career has gotten me this far to actually be seen. Right, so I was celebrating it to myself. Right, so I was in that mode of celebration, and then that next phone call came, and it was from Katie. Katie Newitt, who works with Neil, and arranged for me to come in. And I came in, and I was being fitted for this little dude. At the time, there was only one on this image, and one expression on his face, which isn't the grinning face. It was Tom's face. Would go on to be Tom's face. And so I was being fitted for that, and I was going to have these shoes on my knees because they wanted to play around with the body length and the arm length and all this type of stuff, rather than hiring a small person to play the role. And then I came back again. Tom was there. And this time we both had a fitting, and then they brought out the heads, and I thought the head that I thought I was going to be given to wear was handed to Tom. And then there was just there was a couple of minutes where they said, hang on, yours is coming. Right? And I didn't know what they meant by that kind of thing. It's just like, it's like, well, it's going to be the same as Tom's, right? You just told me they're kind of twins. And lo and behold, they handed me this head with this massive grin on, which I literally mimicked. It was like looking in a mirror, disturbingly enough. And I could see why they gave me this head. And the moment Tom and I put the heads on, we just created this language. And Paul Casey said, well, the dynamics is that Tom's always going to set you off. So you can tilt your head or hide your face to some degree, or put your hand over your mouth. And then when he says something, then crack up, because there'll only be 2 seconds of it in the film, or if that. They're looking for these moments. And I'm thinking, wow, I haven't even had a casting. Right? They then said, right, we'll see you at Show and Tell next week. And I was like, hang on, what's that? And they said, well, next week, Thursday, we're going to have all the creatures and puppets in this room, and JJ's going to walk through with his team and pick and choose who he wants in Maz's castle. And I was like, oh, so we haven't got it yet? And they said, no, not yet. He has to choose. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So I had to put my emotions on pause for an entire week, and then found myself in this room with Dave Chapman, who introduced himself, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we've met. And then I met Warwick Davis for the first time, and his daughter, and I just came over and said hello. And I wasn't sure if he thought I was like some crazy little fan, but he was very polite about it. And next thing you know, Neil says, right, JJ and his crew, they're about to come in, And just before they do, I'm going to say, creatures, come alive. And at that moment, you're going to go into your dynamics, and he's going to walk around the room, and you're going to stay that way, stay in that performance mode until I say creatures end. And everyone's like nods and like, yeah. And then I suddenly walk up to Neil and I said, okay, Neil, so you just want me to carry on, keep going, right? And he says, yep. I was like, okay, right. So next thing you know, creatures come alive, and Tom's facing the door so Tom can see when they come in. And so he starts speaking to me in our Abjurian language that we made up. And I start cracking up every 5 minutes and then pausing, waiting for him to set me off again. And I keep going and going and going. And then right at the end, when Neil says, okay, creatures end, right? So everybody had left. I'd glimpsed JJ a couple of times while I had the head on and stuff like that. So I kind of knew they were in the room at one point. So when they had left, I take my head off and everyone's cracking up. Everyone's cracking up because of this little character. And Neil sat us all down and said, thank you. It was a really good performance. And JJ's going to have every single creature that was in this room. And
wow.
Then he said, and can we also just give Dee a round of applause? And I'm sitting there amongst my peers, you know, people who I worship because they've worked for the Henson Company. You know, I'm a fan of Sesame Street and the Muppets, you know, and I attribute the Muppets to what brought me into Star Wars, because next thing you know, I'm on set, you know, in Maz's castle, you know. And as we're walking in, because you can't really see our eyes, we're walking in and JJ's pointing us out to his crew and things like that. And being having the dynamics that Tom and I have with these heads, we needed to keep the characters going to find a range and find our performance level, and in the process, entertain the crew, you know, while we're sitting there laughing away and people coming up to us and looking at us and things like that. But for us, that, and for me especially, that is what I would associate with Star Wars. You know, I wouldn't associate just sitting there and just, okay, and action. I already want to know who this character is. I already want to be performing this character. And for those people making this movie, and they know it's Star Wars and Star Wars coming back or whatever, everything just fit for us just to keep going. It was an amazing thing. I was sat there. I saw, I can't remember her name.
Lupita Nyong'o?
Yes, that's the one. How do you know? So I saw her, and she came to the table, and you know, I managed to crack her up, which I was really happy about. Really. You know, and then behind us was Daisy, who I'd obviously just seen for the first time because I hadn't seen her on Casualty or anything, and John Boyega. And I'd seen Attack the Block and things like that. And then, hang on a second, there's Harrison. There's Harrison Ford.
Yes.
And sorry. And it's not Harrison Ford when he's in that gear. It's Han. Han was stood there, you know, and JJ said to me at one point, right, when Maz says Han, everyone's going to turn and look, and I want you to turn and look behind you. And I hadn't seen him until at this point. So I turned and he says, you're going to turn and see Han. And then I turned and Harrison was there staring at me, and he gave me that little wry smile, you know, and thankfully I was wearing that mask, because the tears that could have possibly been streaming down my face, I wouldn't want anybody to see, right? And so, yeah, and I'm surrounded by all these creatures. I'm surrounded by puppets, and the puppets are, like I said, with Henson Company, and seeing the two I think they're two snooty kind of puppets who ended up being sat at the bar, bopping away to the music with their little flight goggles on, and that was just pure magic for me. And yeah, we kept that going for maybe 2 weeks filming, or a week and a half. I lose track, but I know we had a long period of filming because Harrison had hurt his leg the week or so before, and JJ wanted to get as much out of that castle as he could, and especially for ILM, so in case they want to move things around and play around with things. I think I counted 4 cameras shooting at any given one time. but I was on set with Han and the Star Wars crew, and it was just, you know, that you can't put that into words in terms of measuring the amount of joy, and the association, and to feel needed, and like you have something to contribute to this universe. That meant the world to me. And right at the end, I said to JJ, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been absolutely amazing. And he turned around and he said, no, thank you. I've never met anybody so consistent in my life. And I couldn't speak after that, you know. It was just pure magic.
That's amazing. And talking of magic, Dee, you know, all those stories are magical. Those experiences are, of course, magical, man. And it is surreal I think whenever a Matty boy and I talk to people who have been on the set of Star Wars, it's always, I don't know, it's always a really unusual experience knowing the guy we're talking to, the person we're talking to is only like one away from really being in actual Star Wars. You were in the actual film. You're a part of that universe, and that's always surreal for us. So this is magical for us, and it's great hearing all of this stuff anyway. But what's it like? How magical is it having your own action figure? Because not every guy can say, oh yeah, I've got an action figure. Because obviously there was an action figure made for, I think although we in the UK would pronounce it Key, but I think it's pronounced Quay Tolsite from Solo, right?
Yeah.
There's an action figure of him. And of course that was you played Quay in Solo. I mean, how cool is that? Do you ever just like, I don't know, when you're out and about, be like, all right, mate, want to see me as an action figure? Then whack.
I got stuffed up by Amelia Clark, didn't I?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. What's that like?
I got my butt handed to me by the Mother of Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
Dude, look. These breadcrumbs I was telling you about earlier, there have been plenty along the way. So on my bedroom wall, I had posters of like Batman, Tim Burton. I wanted to be a runner. I wanted to be an extra or whatever. And that didn't happen. And 10 years later, I get to do some character support on Batman Begins. Yeah. And the only poster, two posters I've never taken off my wall are Spider-Man posters, you know, but then Stan Lee, you know, sent me an autograph when he was over doing an interview at Children's BBC Broom Cupboard, you know, so he sent me an autograph and I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, and Star Wars, that poster is still on my wall, you know, so as these things transpire, it's just one explosion of goosebumps after another. And with the toy thing, you know, it trickled because every time we're doing something, it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they had the toys of this character and whatever? And you don't really want to go there because the range of joy and disappointment, you can be hit with a left and a right with that, you know? So it was like, oh yeah, it'd be cool. And like Maz's Castle, wouldn't it be cool if they had like a little layout set where you could place all these figures for the, you know, we think like that. You know, and we say these things and just vent it and let it go, right? But then the first one came and it was for Cratinus in Maz's Castle. It was on the Lego PlayStation. And that was like, wow. And then the Lego play set of the Millennium Falcon came out and Quay Tolsite was Lego. It was like, oh my goodness. Okay, whoa, okay. I can take that. That's all good. And then Martin Keeler at Fantadrax, you know, handed me the boxed version of Quay Tolsite. And you are right, you know, initially, as far as we were concerned, it was going to be Quay Tolsite, you know, and he holds the keys, you know, it's like, and
of course, yeah.
And Pablo likes to play around with these things. So it was like that. But in the translation, it then, with the American translation, without knowing that, I think that's how Quay came about.
Ah, right.
And I think it's a good little play on words for it to be Quay, even though it's key because he's holding the keys, right?
Right.
And so when he handed me that figure, and I know how hard that figure is to get, which I'm absolutely thrilled about, you know? Yeah, man, I'm rare, baby. You know? So it was like, I still haven't unboxed it, and I think I've got another one. I think I've got two, and I thought I'll get one so I can unbox it, but I can't unbox it. It's just, I don't know how would you feel if they made a character of you and
well, we're still waiting.
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. You can't quantify it, can you? I mean,
no.
Like you say, growing up loving it, and then the next thing you are in it, and now you're immortalised in Lego in an action figure. I don't know how I'd feel about that, mate. To be honest, I'd be excited, put it like that.
Yeah, it's not something you can take for granted. So it instantly becomes a treasured possession, and because you have an association with it, and it's of you in a costume, it's amazing. But it's you in a costume in Star Wars, and it's the pinnacle role that they built up to give me. So from Cratinus to L1, the L1 manumitted droid called Con, who has a 2-second part in Rogue One, and I play the red droid in the alleyway as well. I keep forgetting most of the time for that movie, but it opens up. And that droid was originally going to be K2SO. So Neil had already placed me in contention for that role. But because I know how they make these movies, and I still geek out, man, I have a proper session when I'm watching the prequels, because the prequels behind the scenes is the most epic behind the scenes of anything you will ever see. Yeah. And, to be a part of that transition where they evolve that human-sized droid into a combination of one of those big droids from the Clone Wars and things like that, and see that journey, and to have been a part of that genesis, to then end up with this CGI character voiced by an absolute legend, Alan Tudyk. Yeah. It's like, even that alone is an honor. You could call me up and say, D, we want you just to help develop this thing. You won't be on screen, but we want to help. Yeah, my hand is up. I'm already in the Uber, so it's to be a part of that journey, and then to still be in that movie and have the seconds that I did with those children, which was actually filmed during our downtime. The kids I'd already met the kids and was speaking to the kids as this android, and they were playing along and stuff like that, having some real good fun. And then there was a break. And then after the break, the people that look after them said, "Oh, go and hang out with your android." And they came running over, and that's in the movie. And that for me is such a magical moment, because that's the joy, and that's the magic that Star Wars has over children.
That's what it's about.
So that was part of that journey, and then playing several little characters in The Last Jedi, and then being given Slow and Low, and then being voiced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. These roles were slowly building. And then it just hit this magical crescendo where I'm actually stood in a scene with Emilia Clarke, Woody Harrelson, Phoebe. I can't say her second name. It's Walla Walla something.
Walla Bridger. That's it, Walla Bridger.
Walla Bridger. Yeah, I'm stood in this room with them. I've just been stood in front of the Millennium Falcon with Alden and Chewie. Sorry, Han and Chewie. I'd seen run into Lando plenty of times when I had some really good chats with Donald, who absolutely loved the puppets and things like that, especially for that game. He was totally in it. And I think that's why he was so dialed in, because he's got all these people under the table, all these people next to him, and he's just performing like these. He owns the joint, and these beings are his mates, but just getting to play that role and being a part of that sequence of events on the famous planet of Kessel. And not only is it Kessel, but I run everything on Kessel. Yeah. And I'm planning to sucker these chumps in, and enslave them. And I then get the honor of having my tushy handed to me by the Mother of Dragons. You can't ask for more than that.
No, I'd be fair, I wouldn't mind either, mate, but maybe one day. Well, yeah, to be fair, you mentioned Slow and Low. JGL voiced it. I was foolish. I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt actually was behind The Mask as well, so it's wicked to hear that you were. What was the difference then between, obviously, The Force Awakens, you've got JJ, the return of Star Wars, The Last Jedi is Ryan, and they built those big old elaborate sets for the Casino World Canto Bike. What was was there any like fundamental differences between working on both films, or was it film set, you turn up, you do what you're asked to do and that's it?
It was, listen, it's the same universe, and the directors that are directing get it. They've been given a brief, they know what they're doing. They haven't turned up not knowing what they're shooting and things like that. They've got it all laid out. And to the point where, they're walking around with instant previs and things like that, on this little tablet. So you see what it is that they're aiming for and what they're trying to get. Being surrounded by so many aliens in the casino, that was a beautiful experience, because it was expanding on the universe, that we already know. So, there are dives, on Mos Eisley and things like that. And then there are these elite places, where the wealthy aliens and so forth get to hang out and do their thing. And then you see subtle references and these things popping up or whatever, and all is, wow, man, I'm back, I'm here again. It's amazing. And Neil was very much on hand with Slow and Low for that moment where he points out Finn and Rose, which was amazing to have Neil by my side while we filmed that. And literally, that was I think that was one take. I like to extend it and say maybe it was 2 takes, but I think that was 1 take. And what's incredible about that is that Ryan gives me a line or the gist of what is being said, and the guys will say this, the guys who were operating it was Ollie and Steve Kimman at the time, sharing on that remote, and they repeat the line back in my ear, but I say it at the same time, because I have to physicalize what it is that I'm saying. And so when that rhythm is there and they say it with that rhythm, the body language dictates what comes next. And then what was awesome is that on Steve's face, I don't think I've ever said this, but on Steve's face, he does the surprised look when he's doing it. So as I'm going, it's exactly at the same time as his reaction is, and boom, it was done. You know what I mean? And I was just like, hang on, can I just stay on the set a little bit longer? Can we do that?
Yeah. Can I live on the set, please?
Mess it up or something. But yeah, it's the same universe. And then you get taken to Croatia. Oh my goodness. You're taken to Croatia, right? I'm taken on location for a Star Wars film. I'm like, I've got goosebumps now. Wow. And you walk down these streets and they've decked out the streets, and it's really, really surreal. It's one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. And everybody in the town knows you're there. And everything's set up, where it needs to be, and this place is absolutely beautiful, absolutely amazing, that I probably would never have gotten to see if I hadn't been part of this shoot. And I got to play several different characters while we were over there. Was it Brother Let Rum Play and Lexo Suga, who only appears in the behind the scenes? But oh wow, man, it's just yeah, maybe it's
crazy.
A dream. Maybe it's a dream, man. Maybe it's a dream.
It sounds like a dream. As is all of Star Wars, really. And Dee, I guess this takes us to your favorite Star Wars film. Do you have a favorite Star Wars?
Yeah, and it's A New Hope. It's Star Wars.
Wow, really?
The reason why that is is because not only the impact that it had on everybody when it came out, because I didn't go, I was too young to go to the cinema to see it. We as a family didn't really go to the cinema much until later on, when I was then introduced to the summer blockbusters like E.T. and things like that, which firmly made me decide that if I was ever going to get into film, I want to do big blockbuster films like that. You know, I was a big fan of Superman. I was a big fan of, you know, even though these were TV movies like Battlestar Galactica and things like that, it's just like, whoa, yes, this is what I want. High end. I can't deal with this Doctor Who in black and white anymore. No. I'll show my age, right? But this is, that's kind of where I was at. And that's one thing. But then as my love for Star Wars grew, because we had a long period with the first three movies to watch over and over and over and over again, documentaries started trickling out. And then you heard about how hard it was for George Lucas to make this movie and the obstacles that were in his way, through a lack of understanding and a lack of meeting his mutual vision and things like that. And I'd only ever seen like underdogs really achieve in made up cartoons or in films and things like that. And to know this was a real individual who went through everything that he went through and still managed to get that to the screen, to have every naysayer, anybody who doubted, even those that were helping him make the movie, and all of them have to step back and give that man some respect, and the health issues that he suffered. I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal to kind of really fight for your dreams sometimes, but then on the flip side, if you can survive that fight, man, it's going to be worthwhile tenfold, and that's why I have this passion for this movie. It means more than just being the genesis of what came after with Empire and things like that, because by then, after watching documentaries, he was making episodic movies. It was just taken aback, and I got addicted. I couldn't get enough, so I kept finding all these other different documentaries and things that he would say about it and the journey and him and Ford Coppola and how he started wanting to get into photography. There wasn't a photography class at uni or college, but there was a filmmaking class at uni or college. So, you just look at the man's journey and it's just like, he deserves every amount of love that people have for this franchise. And I see that when Dave Filoni talks about George, but when Dave Filoni talks about Star Wars, I see that. And it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to witness that, and also then see it still grow and he's still attached. It's just from that one movie. And if that movie had been stopped, if that movie had been pulled, if he hadn't been able to get it past the script phase, let alone the storyboard phase, we wouldn't have anything right now. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have Marvel the way it is. We wouldn't have these superhero movies, half of these action movies, through the technology that Lucasfilm developed and just ran with like a freight train. We would have nothing. And if there was a church of George Lucas, man, I'll be there.
I already worship at the man's feet. George will always be in and around Star Wars. Now, though, mate, so will Dee Tails. You're never leaving Star Wars. You're part of the gang now. But honestly, I can't let you go without asking. I know there's a lot of people out there who will be wanting me to ask this, but
okay, how
do you fancy giving us a rendition of the Star Wars theme with that wonderful voice of yours?
Oh my goodness!
Feel free to. I know we're putting you on the spot. Feel free to say I'll send you one. But
Luke, you can do it instead,
or just freestyle. Freestyle over it, give us a little Star Wars freestyle.
No. Listen, I don't do that, man. I'm funkadelic, man. But I tell you what, I'll give you something appropriate, right? Okay.
Hey, there we go.
I'm back dancing around my sofa.
There we go.
That is my ringtone.
Do you know what? I think we're going to have to stop the podcast forever now because that's it. We've peaked now. That's it. We're not going back from there. We're not going back from there. Thank you so much for coming on, chatting, explaining your experiences in a galaxy far, far away for us, Dee. You're an absolute legend.
Listen, so much love to you guys. I enjoy talking about Star Wars. I can talk about it all day. So whenever you're ready to pick up that mic again or whatever, give me a shout. Say, let's talk Star Wars. I am here, right? But just your joy and your passion, I love that, and yeah, I've got plenty of time for you, plenty of love.
Right back at you, friend. Thank you, mate.
Thank you so much, man.
May the force be with you.
Oh, and you. So good.